environment. Bryant is going dancing in March.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa.
I'm Kyle Finn.
And we have a pretty interesting show in store for you. Obviously, got a lot to talk about on this show, Kyle. So obviously, I'm glad to have you back on. I know I've kind of been bringing you on here and there pretty lately. So glad to have you back on the show, man. How are you doing right now?
Doing pretty good. A little more snow than what I was expecting today. I was expecting like maybe two inches this, but we might get up to a few. Maybe I'd say 4 inches.
I know we're getting some pretty decent snowfall here in Rhode Island. So it's not as pleasant as I wanted. I mean, spring break can't come soon enough. Unfortunately, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm actually going north of here. So I mean, I'm not really, probably going to be avoiding it. The only plus side to that is that I could possibly go skiing, but outside of that, this really does suck. But something that was obviously going to be very interesting to talk about on this show today. We have a lot to talk about just in general, and for the first time in a while, Bryant University is making national headlines, and not for good reasons, Kyle. Not at all.
No, not at all. And ESPN2 was probably very happy that they had the broadcast of this wonderful game that was, so very close in terms of points.
Oh yeah, no, just a complete class act of a game here. So for anyone who missed it, and for anyone who doesn't know anything about Bryant University, we ended up hosting the NEC championship game right here at our own Chase Athletic Center. And
2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years in a row. Obviously, the first year we hosted the number 4 seed Mount St. Mary's. We were the number 2 seed, but Mount St. Mary's ended up beating us, and we had no fans in attendance. I remember back they had the fans they had a watch party at like the football field, and they had the stream going, and I was like, this sucks. I wish I could be in the gym for an environment like this. I actually managed to sneak up to the window in the second floor and kind of look through, but it really looked like you were just watching kind of a glorified scrimmage at one point. And I was like, man, this sucks. And I really wish I could have been in the gym. We were in the gym last night, and we faced the number 2 Wagner Seahawks. We obviously had the number 1 seed this year. Our previous matchup between these guys was the regular season finale, which pretty much turned into a championship game of itself. We ended up winning by a total of 8 points, but for the majority of that game, it was a fairly close game. I mean, I remember it being back and forth, and going into this game, I had very similar ideas of. I thought it was going to be a very similar game to that. And part of me even thought that Wagner was going to have a shot of even pulling this game out, but that completely turned on its head.
Well, I mean, while it was very one-sided, though, we got to see Bryant play fantastic defense.
Oh, my God.
Hall Elijah's 8 blocks.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if we're ever going to see that again,
Yeah.
at least in terms of Bryant-wise, but this couldn't have happened any better. This happened in a championship game on national television.
Yeah, no. So this actually ties Hall's career record. Apparently, I had heard that he had 8 blocks previously against Navy, and that this basically ties his all-time collegiate record. I'm like, I mean, what a time to tie your record, man. Obviously, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, but I do feel like it is important to talk about the amazing game that Bryant had. Obviously, Peter Kiss went out there, did his thing, dropped 34 after a game against Mount St. Mary's where he really didn't look like himself. Only had 16 in that game. Wasn't shooting too well. Charles Pride really had to carry the load for him in that last game, and even had to bail him out with some free throws at the end. So to see Peter Kiss get back into it and just be an absolute menace on the court. I mean, do you want to talk about a guy who is absolutely just in the heads of these Wagner players? Peter Kiss is that guy. I mean, he caught a lob from half court. He was throwing down reverse dunks.
And that pass from half court wasn't even that good, by the way.
No.
That if Peter didn't time that jump correctly, that thing was going way out of the court.
No, exactly. I mean, shout out to Ty for even getting it, remotely in the area. But that was just the performance of Peter Kiss last night was pretty legendary, to say the least. Now, I know a lot of basketball fans around the country right now are basically going after Peter Kiss, and they've basically deemed him essentially the next Grayson Allen, saying that, he's a very punchable face. He's like, and while that could be true in some aspects, I'd like to think that Peter Kiss is could possibly cause some chaos down the stretch if Bryant gets hot in the tournament. Obviously, they did end up winning last night. They beat Wagner 70-43. But man, just an absolute crazy game by Bryant. But
Well, before we do get into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
next topic, I have to give a shout out to Chuck Charles
yes,
Pride.
absolutely. Yeah. So
As either the point guard or shooting guard, whatever you want to put him as, this man's had 17 rebounds.
yeah.
For a shooting guard.
No, I know. I mean, Charles Pride, obviously, when he came here, he was more of a defensive guy when he started off at Bryant. And, you know, he kind of was like, and even last year, he was kind of like the second guy behind, or even second or third guy, really, behind Michael Green III and Peter Kiss. Peter Kiss was even their most prolific scorer last year, but nothing close to what he was this year. He averages like 16 last year, and it was kind of him and Mike that kind of did their thing. But in that championship game against Mount St. Mary's, he went off for 33 points, was an absolute monster, and just looked like a completely different guy. He showed off the fact that he actually could shoot the 3-ball. And I think after that game, something just clicked with him. He set the school record for points this season with 44. And I mean, he has just been amazing for Bryant. He is the true unsung hero of this team. And while you'll see Peter Kiss out there, with the high flying acrobatics and kind of causing a bunch of chaos, Charles Pride just puts his head down. He is a hard worker on both sides of the court, and it doesn't get appreciated enough because he's not going to be as bombastic and as crazy as a guy like Pete is, but. Chuck deserves a lot of credit. Not only is Peter Kiss like the #1 scorer in the country, but the combination of him and Charles Pride make up the #1 scoring duo in the country.
And they also did a fantastic job at shutting down Alex Morales.
Oh my God.
He went 0 of 16 from the field and basically played the entire game. They shut down the back-to-back NEC player of the year.
Yeah. He only
in the most important game of the year.
He only had 6 points. Kyle, I mean, that's insane. 6 points.
Three points actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, why I think 6?
That's what ESPN's. I'm looking at the app right now. It says like 3.
Then I must have had something confused. But yeah, so he got completely shut out in this game. So I mean, I don't know what the hell happened with him, but he completely just folded under the pressure, man. I mean, like this is one of those classic games where you just say a guy choked. And I mean, Alex Morales is a good player. Like he's a good player, and he did very well the last time he came in here against Bryant. He was very good, and the entire team for Wagner had much more confidence the last time they played. Again, it was an 8-point game, but that was because we kind of just pulled ahead in the last 2 minutes, and we kind of just set the precedent.
They were making some sloppy mistakes at the end of it. And
once it was basically deemed that Bryant was going to win that game, we maybe had a 4-point lead. We just tacked on some other points in the last few seconds, but that entire game in the regular season championship, it was flipped back and forth the entire way of the game. You want to talk about a game you were at? I mean, obviously I was in the fan section at those games and we were going nuts, but I had no idea which way that game was going to go. On a dime, either team could have gone out and, put up gone on a 10-0 run and taken a ginormous lead in the game, which a bunch of these teams did, in that regular season championship. Wagner, I think, was up 12 at one point on Bryant, and then Bryant would respond and go up, by a bunch at other times. But you never ever felt, confident in whether these teams would pull it out. So, I mean, it was a complete turnaround in this game because I see Wagner come out and obviously they get the first basket of the game. And then Bryant, I believe, scores 11 before, they get another bucket. We were up 36-6 at one point.
Yeah. And then we went on like an 18-0 run.
Exactly.
And it was just, oh my God.
I mean, I remember, I think we were up like 22 or something on them at one point. I was like, okay, Wagner really isn't showing up right now. But in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm thinking back to the Wagner we saw, I think, on February 27th, 26th-ish. And I'm like, okay, that Wagner can come out at any moment, because if you fire these guys up, in my mind, I'm like, all right, they're going to bounce back in some way. Yeah, sure. Bryant got off to a hot start, but that's how these games go. And Wagner, for some reason, was never able to get it going. And it baffles my mind.
I don't have any answers either. I mean, their only lead of the night was that first basket.
Yeah.
After that, complete and utter dominance from Bryant. The largest the lead got for Bryant was 37 points.
Yeah. I mean,
and I personally don't think Bryant will ever see that type of performance again, especially at the championship level, national TV. That was a complete utter dominance of a team statistically that is better than Bryant.
Yes.
Record-wise, and you can make other arguments, but I mean, that was amazing.
No, yeah. I mean, that was amazing. Unfortunately, though, Kyle, it got kind of marred by a very unfortunate event on the campus last night. For anyone who missed it, during the Bryant University basketball game, with about 4 minutes and 37 seconds left to go in the game, the fan sections just went at it. I mean, these guys were just, I was sitting in the fan section. I was more mid-court. So this kind of happened more towards the, if you were watching on your television, it would have been more on the left side of the bleachers. So more towards the
behind where Wagner was sitting.
Yeah. So behind Wagner's bench is where this thing really broke out. And it broke out amongst the fans initially, but it even escalated to the point where players started to get involved.
They had to because their family members were sitting over there.
Exactly. So it got very intense very quickly. And we, as a fan sitting there, we had no idea what was happening. I at first, in my opinion, I thought it was like a team scrum that was going on. I thought the team was like frustrated with it at first.
And then they just started fighting each other on the side.
Yeah. Well, you see that a ton with teams all the time. You see teams that, they get frustrated in a loss and they start chewing each other out. And it's like, and in my mind, I was like, oh, like they're frustrated and that's what's happening. But then I see Will Martinez, book it towards the stands. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And it looked Malice at the Palace style, Bruins going into the stands. It looked as bad as it could get. I heard that chairs were thrown. I mean, there
were chairs thrown.
Yeah, so chairs were thrown. I had a bottle land two rows behind me. Again, I'm sitting mid-court. A Wagner fan got up from the bench from the basket behind the Wagner bench, managed to chuck this Powerade bottle and struck a kid 2 rows behind me. I mean, it was ridiculous as to what happened during this game. I mean, both fan bases, obviously, I would say for the majority, I would say, again, a lot of these fights, it is a small majority of people that do ruin it. And I can say that for both sides. I can say that for Bryant's side and even for Wagner's. I'm not going to say that, it was all Wagner's side that caused something. I don't think that the Wagner pep band was out there, looking for blood. Those type of kids, they're going to games because, they have to. That's what they're on scholarship to do. So I don't think that everyone on Wagner was causing something. And from being a Bryant fan, I know that not everyone on Bryant's side was causing it, because I was in the side from Bryant that wasn't really doing anything. And once it got out of hand, literally, from like the row where the fight was going on over, like that part of the fan section for Bryant sat down. We literally just sat down. We were trying to like get people just to calm down because of how crazy it got in there. I mean, Kyle, you were saying.
Here's the thing, though. This, first of all, DPS. What was the decision making here? First of all, allowing anyone from Wagner to come was a big mistake.
Yeah, that was a big mistake, and
because they weren't going to put them over where the season ticket holders were, and they probably would have been in the section that I was standing in, where the other ESPN camera was.
Yeah, exactly.
Because those are paid tickets, and then those people would get kept. They wouldn't have done that.
But honestly, though, I would have just said, hey, for this game, those paid ticket members, we're just going to stick you over here because the Wagner things are doing this. I mean, I walked.
But then the problem is those season ticket holders would have got angry, and then they probably would have been like, you know what, because of how we've been treated and we're being put on the Wagner side, they probably would have been like, you know what, I don't want to have season tickets anymore if this is how I'm being viewed. If I'm getting kicked out of my own seat that I paid for the entire year.
But you don't do what you did last night. You don't do that. I'm sorry. When I was kind of walking about, and I ended up I heard basically, oh, Wagner's bringing their pep band, Wagner's bringing fans rather, and I'm like,
that was a mistake to do.
Well, I heard that, and I was like, okay, schools bring pep bands, schools bring fans all the time. To me, that wasn't the big deal. I was like, okay, they're gonna bring fans. I'm like, in my mind, I was like, we're gonna out cheer them, we're gonna be big, we're gonna be louder and whatever than them, but sure, they're gonna bring fans. And I ended up saying to someone, I'm like, well, where are we gonna put them? Are we gonna put them on the other side of the court? And they basically go, no, we're actually just gonna stick them like in your guys' section. I'm like, my jaw dropped. I was like, you're gonna what? I'm just like, do you not know what we have been? I wasn't in the line when stuff like this was going down. But have you not seen the videos of what kids here were saying to Wagner players when they were leaving shoot-arounds? I mean, and again, when
not only shoot-arounds, but it happened when Wagner was walking into the building while students were standing outside trying to get in.
Exactly.
It was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Yeah, and that's what happened.
And the fuse that led to it exploding was a tiny little rope that separated the fan sections. I'm like, if you're gonna put them in the bleachers, you should have like a row that isn't like filled or something like that. You should do something like that, because when again, you had a tiny little piece of rope separating the fan sections, and I'm just like. I think I said to someone, I'm just like, I will never do something like that. But I was like, a fight's going to happen when you do something like that. That's an idiotic decision to have just a tiny piece of rope there.
The one thing I was shocked about is how a fight happened in the pregame when, because Brian came in at 6 p.m., but the Wagner people had come in at 5:30 because But the thing though is they have this one little strip behind where the scores table and the benches are for everyone to navigate through.
Yeah.
How did something not happen there? Why didn't they think about this?
I think there is more of a mob mentality there, Kyle, to where I think you're in the stands and you have people around you and stuff will, push you to do stuff. When you're one off with someone and you're like, you've been at sporting events, even contested ones, like it could be like Red Sox, Yankees. Like if you're running into someone like on the causeway or whatever, you're not gonna maybe you're like, oh, like Yankees suck or like something like that, and you kind of you have like a little dig with someone, but chances are like majority of people aren't just going to be like, hey, just start throwing fists at people. Like there is kind of a idea that, all right, once we leave the bleachers, we're just like trying to get food. We're just trying to do whatever we can do. Like I'm not trying to ruin your life once we're down here. But in the bleachers, it's like, okay, like we can like we'll scream at you, we'll do whatever. And like that's kind of like how it goes up there. But again, it just completely exploded because, with 4 minutes and 37 seconds left, I don't know how this started. From what I've heard, Wagner threw the first punch, but then I've also heard that, it was started from Bryant's chants, because I know that there was some very I can't repeat the chants on here, but I know all of the chants that went into that game. I know every single chant, and even like I can't even tell you what fans were doing and looking into to create chants for this game. There were fans doing a lot of deep digging, is basically what I'll say, to create chants for this game. Like there was a lot of stuff going on that led to some of the chants during this game, basically.
I did enjoy reading the 2 emails that our lovely president did send out this morning. And also, this I don't know how this wasn't even talked about enough either. So at the end of the game, when the clock hit 0 and the fans started storming,
yes,
the NEC commissioner,
I heard about this,
was where the Wagner bench is walking past to go to the scores table. She got shoved over by 20 fans and got trampled on.
Yes.
I don't know. And the crazy thing is she got up all A-okay, like nothing happened, and presented those shows. I got to give it to her.
I mean, good for her, man.
I got to give it to her.
Honest to God. Credit to her.
There's some pretty, big Bryant kids, like, they hit the gym and stuff. They weigh 200 pounds at least.
We got some kids that would have been in the Chase Athletic Center today doing some lifting. So
exactly.
We have kids that, you got some beefy,
we got some big boys.
you got some beefy kids. So honestly, I unfortunately I don't know her name off the top of my head, but credit to her for managing to get back up after that.
Noreen Morris is her name.
Noreen, credit to you. All the power to you. I'm really glad you're able to get up.
I was gonna read the statement that she wrote, because this was on the NEC page, and this wasn't really seen by anybody else.
Yeah.
So this is the statement. I'm disgusted that on a day we were all here to celebrate NEC men's basketball, it was marred by the actions and supporters who didn't respect the game and the hard work these two teams put forth to get to the championship.
Yeah.
Athletic competition should bring out the best in us. Sadly, we did not see that last night. We will conduct a thorough investigation of last night's incredibly disappointing events and begin an immediate review of our game management policies to address this type of unruly and disrespectful fan behavior. Everyone who attends an NEC regular season or postseason game must feel safe and welcome, including our student athletes, coaches, administrators, and of course the fans. We did not meet that expectations last night.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions as to what you do from here on out. For one thing I've heard definitely is that neutral locations will be the norm for playoffs going forward. That's something I've heard a lot of, because I mean, again, I love Bryant, but we play in a glorified high school gymnasium.
It's a pretty nice stadium, though. It's a lot nicer than some of these other stadiums. Some of these other NEC stadiums are dumps.
No, I agree. So for Bryant makes the best of what we have. I do agree with that. We really do make the best of what we have. We have good stuff. We have good high quality stuff in that arena. It's not like, we're playing in an arena from like the 70s or 80s where, we haven't updated stuff. We have updated stuff. We have good cameras. We have good scoreboards. Everything is as up to date as a facility like that can be. But again, when you're putting fans and players in a stadium like that, and you don't even have the means to separate those two fan bases with as much as a string, I mean, you're not. I mean, what do you expect is going to happen when you do that? I'm sorry. What do you expect was going to happen?
Oh, and it was all those arguments and everything were happening beforehand. Kids were getting kicked out from at least Bryant, and some from Wagner throughout, like, the first half at halftime and then beginning of the second half. And then this really just happened out of nowhere. I looked over and someone, what's crazy? I was standing over where the ESPN camera is down on the left side, for those who were watching the broadcast when we were at the stadium, and just standing there because I was going to communicate with some of the ESPN people because I have interest wanting to work there. But everything went haywire, obviously. And a few of the season ticket holders who I happened to be standing there by thought I was security. So they tapped my shoulder and they're like, hey, I think you need to go over there and break that up. And I was like, what do you mean? I look over, I just see all this mayhem going on. I was like, whoa, I don't get paid for all this. No. Whoa.
No, I mean, yeah. So from your angle, like, what did you see from your angle about that? Because from mine, again, I look over and I just hear like commotion going on.
I had a very great angle of the after when everyone was getting broken up and the Wagner people being told to come down from the bleachers onto the court and over by where the emergency exit doors are. And I saw so many people because the plastic water bottles, like the Gatorade bottles, that got tipped over. And these people were still chucking them. And this wasn't even like the players. This was still like the family and the friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And the DPS, like if I was DPS, I mean, I would have just pushed them out immediately because they're them just standing there, just allowing this to continue. They basically stood there like traffic cones. That's literally what they were. They were basically just traffic
glorified.
Cones. Yeah. That's until the riot police had to show up, and then
I mean,
I don't know how nobody was fighting with the police though. That was the wild part. If they had no problem fighting with the DPS officers, the police should have been in no problem also.
No, I know. I mean, we had the entire state of Rhode Island out at Bryant.
Yeah, we had Smithfield Police, we had Lincoln Police, State Police, and I mean, we had like I think about 20 ambulances, 10 that were over by where the chase was, and then 10 on standby at the security entrance for
and again, like 20 to 30 cop cars just like in the parking lot. And I was like,
it's like you would have thought the president was here or like some big famous person.
Yeah, no, exactly. You would have thought that there was like
I guess we did have the Rhode Island State governor here.
Yeah, I mean, we did have that, but even that wouldn't command what we saw last night. And like, we saw like the line going out and there was just emergency vehicles the entire way. Like, again, you would have thought that there was like a massive like thing going on here. And, obviously there was, but no, like, but I mean, like, more like, kind of than that. I mean, it was just like, it was crazy to watch. I mean, you were talking about the fans in the section. I mean, that guy in the Team USA jersey got rocked. Did you see that?
Yeah, he had his old shirt bloodied and everything. And
I mean, I saw him.
I don't know what the extent of his injuries were. I would imagine a broken nose because he got one piece and then he immediately fell back over.
I heard someone say a broken jaw. I can't confirm nor deny that. It's at least a broken nose.
Yeah, I don't know about jaw though. I didn't see him get popped in the jaw. And those ESPN cameras with the 4K ability, I did not see anyone get punched in the jaw. I mean, but that nose got rocked.
I did see the punch though, and it wasn't like you didn't see a guy wind up. You literally just saw a quick jab, and like this kid like literally left planet Earth for a second. I was like, oh my god.
Do you know who should have been watching this broadcast?
Who?
Dana White.
Honest to God. I mean, I've been hearing people say that this looks like season 5 of Cobra Kai. I was like, yeah, I mean, honestly, it was that bad. And I'm glad it didn't get worse. My fear was that we were going to see players almost over in our section. And I like,
like from Bryant?
No, from Wagner.
One person did get ejected from Wagner.
Yeah, again, Will Martinez, he did get ejected from the game. Again, there were some chants that were designed for him that I don't think that he took appreciation towards. So I think there was definitely some issues.
I don't think anyone on Wagner appreciated any of the things that we said. I mean, we were saying some nasty things right from when students were getting tickets from 2 days ago.
Oh yeah, it started then. But there was kind of a difference though. Like when you saw the Wagner fans walking out, and again, I'm not excusing the fans that got involved in anything and making things physical. But when Wagner walked out of shoot arounds, they were filming with their cameras. They were egging it on, like they were kind of chirping back with the fans. And it wasn't like a stable, like friendly environment, but it almost seemed like oh yeah, like we're gonna be like kind of like like going at you and like we're gonna kind of put it give you it back and do it like that. In my mind, I was like, okay, it's going to be like one of those things. And I knew there was a little bit more animus than that. But man, it just completely blew over.
The one thing I gotta do say about Bryant though is they everything that they have planned out from tickets to when the Wagner had their shoot around it. I think they knew what they were doing in terms of trying to be intimidating.
Of course they did. I mean, they had Wagner walk past us on the bus in, and they not even them, the fans too. They had the Wagner fans walk past us, and I'm like, all right, it's on. Like when you saw that, I was like, all right, you're gonna be asking for it now. Like I don't like again, I don't know what they expected to happen.
Well, I think
I'm not condoning what happened, but again, I completely could have seen something like this happening.
Well, here's my thought process with how they were thinking. So when the people were standing there to get their tickets, there was no DPS officers in that area. So no. I was shocked the fight did not happen there. Because there was like, what would you say? There were about 1,000 students in line trying to get tickets.
I'd say something like that. Yeah. It was insane.
But the only thing barricading between the Bryant students trying to get tickets and Wagner's basketball team getting off that court was again, rope, like the pull out rope. So they were probably thinking like, okay, if that worked out well, why not use some little pathetic yellow rope? And
yeah. I mean, the other thing I've heard too, though, is how much alcohol could have played a role in this. Because I know,
we just ruined our chances of having beer at any of our events, let alone basketball.
Yeah, no. So I heard Bryant basically, obviously, we started selling beer at our events, like,
it was starting this year.
Yeah, we started it this year. It was a 1-year trial policy that.
But the thing though is, people were already drunk beforehand. Like people were sneaking in, like the little nip bottles, like in their pockets, because they don't do a pat down or anything. And plus, you can, you can get lit before the game.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's what people are going to do because, what are you going to do? Like, not a lot of people are trying to spend $6 on, a Truly. Like,
that is true.
People really aren't trying to do that when they can get one for basically what's the price of $1 back at their own place. So
exactly.
So a lot of people were already showing up to this thing hammered, and I was like, all right, like again, it's going to be on at this thing.
So let me ask you this though, because obviously they haven't made anything official yet. But what do you think is going to come out of all of this once they complete their investigation?
I think they're going to look at the video. They're going to see that. I mean, again, ESPN, you mentioned it, has 4K cameras, just pinned on.
They had like, and they had like 10 4K cameras.
Well, and the thing too, Kyle, is like, I didn't realize it until I checked Twitter later. ESPN never cut to commercial. Which,
yeah, they showed from when that fight happened till the end, to when everyone stormed the court. They went uninterrupted for 45 minutes.
Yeah, so ESPN stayed with that broadcast and did not cut it, which, and
that was very shocking because usually when we see, because usually like on the Super Bowl, like especially like when they have streakers on the field, exactly. They don't want to show any of that.
No, exactly.
But for some reason, they had no problem showing this fan fight. So I was like, if you're gonna have. If you're going to take your camera off of people streaking, which is really just people running out and like, they just want to have their 15 minutes of attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're naked, there's that too. But.
Yeah. But I mean, how many times do you really see people get naked?
Well, that's why that's why the NFL, they always cut away.
That's true. But why would you show people fighting? I would have been like, you know what? This is bad for TV. We got other colleges watching.
That's why
there are parents that are concerned about their kids being in that. At least they would have had the common decency to cut the commercial or, bring it back into the studio and get the next game prepared.
I have one reason why.
What, ratings?
Why. No, 2. ESPN 2 is why. This is why. I mean,
hey, it's still nationally televised.
No, it is. I mean, you had Tim Welsh, who was the PC coach back in the day, doing color commentary. So, I mean, again, like, it's not like you had like absolute nobodies out here calling the game. You had notable people calling it, but I mean, I was surprised that they didn't cut it, but again, that does provide you the ability. Then you have the greatest security cameras basically in the history of the world, to where you can go and you can literally see, who started punching who, and you can just, start drawing circles and be like, all right, let's go ID this kid. Let's go ID this kid, and basically just pull them out and be like, all right, now we're going to discipline you. I don't know what kind of discipline that goes with. I don't know if that's kicking someone out of a university. I mean, if not, you're getting fined pretty heavily, or even dealing with stuff at a criminal level. I have no idea what goes into something like that, but that's my best guess as to what's going to happen. I don't really see what's the point in punishing people that didn't play a part in it. I mean, not only did basically, I'd say the entirety of the Bryant University fans avoid this conflict. Again, we literally sat down the Bryant University players also stayed out of this too, which I was glad about. I mean, they had no reason to get involved with something, but
well, it would also be pretty stupid too. You're up by 25,
exactly.
and then next thing you know, you're going into the stands fighting for no reason, and then they would have done a suspension based off of games. Either that, or the whole team for Bryant would have got disqualified from March Madness,
Exactly.
and then probably. The only problem is I don't know if Wagner would be the people to replace them. Who would you even replace in that situation?
LIU is the 3. So, I mean, you could,
I guess,
but I mean, maybe you could have given it to the second place in another competitive conference or something like that. You could have done something like that, but I don't know. I'm glad though that they didn't do that, because I mean, Bryant was involved in a fight earlier this year against LIU. I mean, so we did see these,
and Peter Kiss was the reason why it escalated to where it did.
You know what, people were getting all over Peter Kiss for his actions on the court.
He was pretty well behaved.
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, he did do this.
Oh,
and
no.
then
He's doing the push-ups. He's doing like the goggles. He's doing everything. So here's the thing: everyone is losing at Peter Kiss and basically saying, "Oh, this guy's like a showboat. This guy is like so obnoxious." For anyone doesn't,
but you're also dropping 35 points in a championship game that send your school to the first time.
And the other thing too, Kyle, is for the people who haven't never watched a Bryant basketball game, that's kind of the most well-behaved I think I've ever seen Peter Kiss. Yeah. I mean, if this was the Peter Kiss of 3 months ago, you would have seen you would have seen him in the stands with a chair, kind of just mowing people down. So, in my opinion, Pete was on his best behavior last night, and that might piss off some people a lot more. But that's kind of the truth. Like, that was Pete almost pretty much on his best behavior. So I mean, but obviously that, while that could have been him maybe on his best behavior, again, people are kind of going at him. Do you think his actions, I mean, how much do you think his actions played into, all this kind of boiling over?
I'd probably say a good amount though, because he thrives off of how the crowd reacts.
Oh my God.
That's his home. If the crowd is dead,
yeah,
he doesn't perform well, because he likes to be engaged. And that's what makes Bryant basketball so interesting, especially as a fan, though, is because you want to have the team recognize you, that you are a valued aspect of this. We're basically
100%.
The sixth man, like literally this, and we played a huge role. We know the fans rattled Wagner, because we saw Wagner the first time, and again, back and forth, and this time it was like a sell from the first time though, but we were given it on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And that, I think, really I think that really, like, I don't want to say woke him up though, but it gave him a reality check, and like, wow.
Yeah.
Bryant students came out here and they were ready to annihilate. They wanted to see annihilation.
Yeah. And
they got it.
I mean, I think the reason the Bryant students never relented is because of how close the other 2 games that we had, against them were. The first game we had against them early in the season, we lost by 3 points. I think we had a lead of like 12 to 16 points, but we ended up blowing it in the final minutes of our first matchup at Wagner. And then even in the season finale here, again, back and forth games. So coming into a game like this, again, we were up and the fans were, the fans were obviously into it, but, at least in my mind, I was like, all right, nothing could ever be certain. And, eventually we did pull away, and I was like, okay, this thing's turning into a blowout. But, I think that's why the fans just never kind of relented. And, I know Seattle was like the 12th man, and I've never been in Seattle when they were good, and I never really got to see that effect. But man, Bryant, because we play in a shoebox, we are literally on top of these guys on the court. And in my mind, I don't know how it doesn't have an effect on these players. These guys are, obviously, high class, first, Division I athletes. I don't care what conference you play in. If you're Division I, you are a good freaking player. So, I mean, credit to these guys for all they're able to do. But in my mind, I don't know how Bryant couldn't have had an effect on them last night.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, back to the what NEC is going to do. I think one thing that wouldn't be the most outlandish thing is to have a breathalyzer test before you enter the stadium. I don't know.
Not start with that.
Hey, listen, if it means making sure that everyone stays safe and no one acts rowdy, and making sure we have the most sober, beautifully behaved kids in our stadium.
What is this, BYU?
No, it's Bob Jones University.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, like, listen, I want people to be safe. And again, I think what happened last night was terrible. I think that alcohol could have played an effect on it, but I mean, what are we going to turn ourselves into here? Like,
well, I mean, considering that we've made national headlines on basically about almost every news station, every newspaper. Oh, this is an interesting thing. I was listening to some of the local RI radio stations,
Yes.
like NPR and
Yes,
that
yes,
stuff.
yes.
And they from I guess somehow like they have inside connections or whatever. They believe based upon how Brian behaved last night in terms of fan wise, they might be kicking Brian out of the conference.
Out of the NEC. Really?
And I don't know how, but this is right now just a rumor right now.
That's very interesting. I mean, the only thing that could come of that is I know Bryant is actually for football is thinking of joining the Big South. So that's something that we've already considered doing.
South.
Yeah. No.
Even though we're like what we'd
Well,
be
yeah.
like the most north team.
No, it's very odd, but I'd have to look up who's in the Big South. But there were reports. I saw Jihad Edmond of the football team, and Zevi Ekos, and some of those guys posting about it. But I'd have to look it up. The Big South like standings. Yeah, so I'd have to look it up. But basically, there are reports that we were trying to join them in order to kind of get some better competition for football
and try to increase revenue into our football team and get a bigger fan base, and then who knows, maybe get a bigger stadium.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind it. So let me look up the Big South.
That's the 2030 vision for you guys.
Yeah. So in the Big South, in the North Division, we got Longwood, Campbell, High Point, Radford, North Carolina, A&T. That's actually where J.R. Smith plays golf.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hampton. And then in the South Division, so I don't know how it exactly works, but then we got Winthrop, Gardner-Webb, USC Upstate, UNC Asheville, Presbyterian, and Charleston Southern. So those are the schools kind of there. Again, you're talking South. So again,
there's a few schools that you mentioned that did pop into my head.
Yeah. So again,
wouldn't be the worst thing.
No, I know. So maybe there is a division that Bryant could essentially have a move to. But
the thing though is, I mean, granted, I mean we would be facing better competition though. But like, how many times have let's just say football wise, and let's say also even basketball wise, if they decide to eventually that they might want to do it because of what happened last time.
And maybe it's not even to the Big South, but another conference.
Yeah, another this is also like our first time even winning the NEC or even performing consistently up in the top of the NEC in terms of football. You're gonna already move them out. Wouldn't you want to keep them there a little bit longer?
Yeah,
because then competition is going to get hard. And
yeah, I mean, the only thing I could see behind moving them though, and this is basically what I would see with it, it's that you get them into that division rather than waiting out a couple years and trying to see how you do. You get them in, and basically you can go to these recruits and be like, hey, we proved ourselves. We're now in this division. You should come play with us, rather than try to test out saying, oh, we'll play in the NEC for, we want to have a run like this for 3 years. And then in year 2, it goes completely down the tubes. And, and then it's like, all right, now we're kind of just stuck here again. It might be a better move to try to move into a bigger conference, attract, bigger athletes, and then go and then try to build off that. I mean, that's, I guess, something that you could try to do, but it really is all up in the air, Kyle.
But back to the conversation of what else I think the NEC could do in terms of this outcome. I don't think any away fans, especially like when it comes to championship games in such high manner, they're going to either have to come up with a strategic plan or just not have them show up at all.
I think
it would be a little hard to do. But the thing though is they also had this on ESPN. Wagner fans probably had a better view from ESPN than where they were sitting.
I'd say, I mean, you could make the argument for that, but at the same time, I don't have an issue with bringing fans in here, but I think that you should do it better. I mean, again, I would have just said, hey, for this game, or just say for the season tickets or wherever you have to rent out the section, because there is a section that you can buy tickets for. So I would have just said, all right, we're just gonna move that over to the student section for this game. We're gonna put you over there. We can we'll do that cheap little rope off thing, because again,
we'll make you feel like VIPs.
Yeah, and again, I don't think Bryant fans are gonna go after their own fans for something like for being in a VIP. You're not gonna have that kind of ministry. So you could have like a cheap little rope there. So you could have done something like that. And then, you actually kind of, you wing off. You could even do a cheap little rope on the other side with the Wagner's people, because, a lot of those people are season ticket holders, and, they can get rowdy, but, at most games, they're usually just going to sit there and golf clap through the whole thing.
Yeah, they were doing a little bit more than golf clapping.
No, I know last night, but typically, I would have at least set them on the other side, away from the full on student fan section. That's at least in my opinion of it. But you talked about Bryant moving divisions. Something else that could be on someone else that could be on the move though after the season is Coach Jared Grasso. He's attracted offers, from a couple schools right now. It's basically only rumors at this point. But UMass is one of the teams that's of interest. URI, their job is likely to open up soon. Their head coach just didn't really have a great year, so there's talks that.
Well, you can't really do anything when basically your whole starting five are seniors and they graduate.
No, exactly.
I mean, you're going to have a rebuilding year because then you got to go out and try to convince, other because they don't really get 5-star recruits. They get 3 stars.
You talking Bryant?
No, I meant URI.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get maybe potentially, if you're lucky, maybe 1 4-star recruit, but it's mostly going to be between 2s and 3s because they have a pretty in-depth program. They have a much more bigger spending area than us for Bryant.
Yeah,
because they're a state-run college and they have 20,000 kids. They go there. So I don't know. I'd probably say for our coach Grasso, why would you want to leave? You can easily just convince a lot of people on national TV tonight that you can get more people, you can get a dominant fan base, and if that fan base comes out every night, they're unstoppable. You can continually just punch your ticket to March Madness every year by being in the NEC. It's not a guarantee, but you have a good chance.
So I don't disagree with you on that, Kyle. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But Bryant, again, you want to talk about a team that's losing a lot of starters. They
are losing a lot of
Bryant's
starters.
Losing a lot of starters. We're losing Peter Kiss, Hall Elijahs. We're losing Luis. I think so. He'll be up unless I don't think he has a grad year. So I think he's up.
We'll have some.
We're losing Adam Alita, our 3-point specialist. We're losing Greg, so we're losing a lot of key guys on our team. Obviously, Charles Pride's gonna be back, which will be great.
But he's only one person though. He can only do so much.
Exactly.
He can't battle other teams.
So next year we might have another leading scorer in the country because Chuck's probably gonna have to average 50. So
who knows? He might be like the Russell Westbrook of college basketball. My man's gonna have to be scoring points, whether it's at the free throw line or shooting threes, pull ups or layups. Getting rebounds because we just saw him get 17 rebounds last night. He's going to be, expanding so much energy. It's going to be amazing how he's going to stay in shape this offseason, like what his routine is, diet, and all that stuff. Because he's going to have a long 3 to 4 months next year.
I'd love to get a chance to talk with him on this show at some point, obviously after the season. I've been in touch with other guys like Adam Alita. He's gonna, our 3-point specialist. He's obviously going to be leaving too. But I actually spoke with him back in April, and he ended up saying that his goal was.
I did see your story post on Instagram last time from the old combo.
Yeah, he ended up saying, my goal is to go out here and win a championship. So he obviously got that chance, but he's going to be up next year. So again, we have a lot of moving pieces. So for Coach Grasso, what you could do with Bryant right now is almost turn it into, almost like a last chance kind of thing where, college basketball, obviously, a lot of these guys that are really good are only in college because of the one and done rule, and otherwise would have tried to get drafted out of high school. Usually if you're staying in college past your second year, it's not considered a failure. I mean, I wouldn't say anything like that, but
no, because college basketball is actually pretty fun. I mean,
no, I know it's very fun, but
but in terms of getting money,
for a lot of guys trying to make moves to the league, you're trying to do that usually after your first or second year in the league. Guys can do it after their 4th year. I mean, obviously back in the day, Michael Jordan played.
But again, it was the 80s. That was a different time.
Yeah, exactly. He played a bunch of seasons at North Carolina, and that was but that's what you did back then. So there are guys that do play all 4 years, will go through a senior day, have that whole experience, but it isn't as common as you see nowadays. If you're Coach Grasso, what you have to do is you almost need to make Bryant like the transfer spot for these guys that maybe got disgruntled with other schools, maybe didn't get the chance that they should have, and be like, hey, you didn't get that shot here. Come here. You're going to be a star. That's what he did with Peter Kiss. He took him from being kind of a role player guy over at Rutgers, said, hey, we're going to bring you in here and you're going to be a star. And he was. So
that's what I would say. I would be like, hey, listen, I brought, Peter Kiss, and look what he turned into. Number 1 leading scorer in the country for this season. I wouldn't say make that promise every time though, but you're going to be getting the minutes. You're going to be getting the respect, and you're going to be in a sold out crowd. Well, if we can get a sold out crowd, because we know how Brian students are, they got their exams and everything. But if you can guarantee that, and it's going to be a lit atmosphere, and obviously these players don't really care. They care about getting to it though, but They don't care when they do it. They just want to eventually get there.
I mean, yeah, Kyle, as well. Not only did he do that with Peter Kiss. I mean, I was talking about Adam Alita. He did that with him too. When he was at, I think it was Northern Kentucky or Eastern. I forget. But yeah,
Eastern sounds more.
I think he was at Northern. I think he was, but I forget. He was at Kentucky, and he only had like 3 points there. He had been a part of a team that had made it to that had won their conference and would have been going to the NCAA tournament, but they got canceled because of COVID. But he didn't get a ton of opportunities there. He had some games where he would go off and have some explosive nights, but a lot of the time he was relegated to the bench a lot. He comes in here, he becomes our 3-point specialist, and for a scoring option, he turned into a great one for this team. I mean, he was a starter and was absolutely electric for us this year. So he is able to do it for more guys than just Peter Kiss. He's really able to kind of turn it around and do it for a bunch of guys. So it's going to really depend on what guys can do going forward. I really don't know what it's really going to look like, but on the flip side of it, Grosso might basically go, all right, I have a bunch of guys leaving. There's no guarantee that I'm going to have a good season next year. And some of the coaching offers that I'm going to get, there's no real shot that I might get there's no real shot that I could get a legit offer again. Yeah. And for, someone making the kind of money he does, if, let's say, I don't know, let's say UMass comes by and says, hey, we'll offer you $800,000 a year or,
yeah, but I got to give it up to anyone who can coach the UMass team. Like that team every year is not good. And that team, I sometimes watch UMass games. Those games are really hard to watch.
Yeah, man, but Bryant wasn't good for a long time. In 2017, 2018, we had 3 wins as a program.
Yeah,
I mean,
at one point,
Grosso's able to, if he's able to get his guys in the building, which he has done his time here as a Bryant coach. I mean, you've been able to, you're able to see what he can do with a program. I mean, it's tremendous what he's been able to do. So again, I think that if you were to get him in as your coach, he could get the right kind of guys around you, and some very interesting things could happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. But now they got Sunday coming up, Selection Sunday. That's going to be the next big one, because do you see Bryant being that 16 seed and then playing in the first 4, or do you see them sneaking it out and maybe potentially getting a 15, or even if they're very, very lucky, very unlikely though, could potentially get a 14 seed? I think because of the performance they put up last night, I believe a 15 seed wouldn't be out of the question.
I think they could get a 16, and it could be I think they could get a 16, but not a playing 16.
So yeah, that is true.
They could get one of those, because they won the regular season title, and then they won
and then they backed it up,
and then they blew the doors off Wagner in the championship series. So I'm just like, I mean, what more can you do at that point?
Yeah, we'd have to wait till Selection Sunday though, but it makes sense why Mount St. Mary's last year was made in the play-in tournament, because they obviously won as a 4th seed. So obviously, like when you look at when you're on the committee, like, do you really think like it would be okay to put them as a regular 16 seed, and like you want to make sure they get their worth then and prove their point?
I know it's interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I'd rather see the Bulldogs as a 15 seed, because I like the odds of a 15 over a 2 rather than a 16 over a 1. I know UMBC was able to do it back in the day, but you see more 2s over 15s than 16s over 1s. It's just a fact.
Well, we've only seen 1 16 over 1.
I know
with what you mentioned.
Exactly. So you don't see it too often. So again, congrats to Coach Grosso on doing what he's been able to do with this program. But again, if he was to leave, there'd be a lot of questions as to what would happen. Something interesting, though, that I did see during the broadcast last night is, if he was to leave, someone who could possibly take over. And, this guy, he's not currently in a coaching role. He's actually our director of scouting and video analysis, Chris Duhan, former Duke guard and former NBA veteran. He's on our staff. Is he someone that is someone with his kind of experience, someone that you'd like to see take over this Bryant program if Grosso was to leave and didn't take him with him?
I would like to say at least put him in like an assistant coach role, maybe for a year.
I mean, he's 39 years old.
Yeah,
so he's young.
Yeah, I would say put him in an assistant coach role. I'd say for at least 1 year, and then depending on if he feels comfortable and Bryant believes they have the ability to bring him up to the next level, and they know he can command this team well, bring them together, make sure they keep them focused.
Well, I'm not talking about elevating him in the event that Grosso is going to leave. I'm talking about like Grosso's done after this year. Like let's go into that.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, do you bring in it? I don't think you bring in a 1-year guy.
That's the thing though.
Like in my mind, I'm just like, do you go out and basically say, hey, we have a former Duke guy, we have a former NBA player on our roster?
Well, here's the thing though. What would you do with our current assistant coach then?
Yeah.
What would you do with him? Would you?
Well, I mean, that's the fear though. Would Grosso take his current staff? Because I mean, look at Lincoln Riley. He did that with, obviously that's a football reference, but he did that with his entire staff. He completely stripped that place bare.
But it depends on what the other universities that want Grosso, like if they're willing to, if these universities are willing to do anything, then we could see the entire staff leave though. Like maybe UMass could do that because I think they're in desperation of
UMass could
any help.
UMass could definitely do.
They are in desperation of any type of help. I can't really see URI doing that because they've always had a consistent program. It just happened to be, unfortunately, this year, like, they had a lot of newcomers come on and they had people from the bench had to step up and do starters. Yeah. So that was just a growth year. I think we'll be seeing them at least in the middle of pack to upper tiers in the A10, and then we could see them get to maybe the semis in that conference, maybe the championship, and maybe winning it. I'd see more semifinals, but this is basically, it was just like an off year for them. I think they'll be back to their normal thing. But if it's for UMass, though, I think we could see Bryant cleaning house.
Yeah, no, I do have to agree with you. I think it could definitely be a full scale teardown here, which I would hate to see, but it is something that I think could be on the horizon if Grosso was to choose something like that. I mean, I really hope he doesn't. I know that, I know here the fan base really does love Coach Grosso. We're very passionate towards him.
Well, because he gets into it with the crowd. You see them chanting
the crowd.
So Grosso.
No, I mean, and he adores it. I mean, he was on the, he publicly went out and said, yeah, I snuck 8 football players into the game. That's not something like that's not insider information that I'm now like, I'm not like now I'm uncovering from him. He went on a news press conference and said, yeah, I did that. And he said, I even made a video for a random kid just to get him in the game. So like Grosso loves these fans and he wants them in the arena because he knows the impact that they have and he knows that they love him. So, I mean, listen, I hope that he does end up staying. I hope that we're able to find a way to keep him to stay. Now, I don't know if that's, getting the new basketball stadium in, which, I've heard mixed reports about. I don't know what the deal is with something like that, but
that just depends if he's willing to wait, though.
Yeah, I feel like if we were to do something like that, it'd be like for like that like 2030 plan Brian's trying to do. So
you see him leave Brian to go to UMass, and then he comes out and be like, we got that new basketball stadium, hockey stadium. And
absolutely. But I don't know, man. I'm really excited to see what Brian's going to do in the tournament selection Sunday. Got to be very interested to see what we do get placed at. I mean, before we go, because of the actions on the court, do you think Brian could possibly get punished because of something like this? Do you in terms of the seeding, do you think that, we could have been a 15, 16 seed, but instead now we're going to be playing in like the play-in as a result of something like this? Do you think that's do you think that's on the table?
I don't think so, because this was purely only the fans, and I don't believe the basketball team should be punished for what the fans do.
Yeah.
Who does need to be punished is the event staff, DPS,
unfortunately though, the NCAA committees don't see it as punishing the team; they see it as punishing the school. So that's where I'm kind of concerned. Then
I would say in this point, if you want to punish the school, hand out fines, or like have like someone like the AD, for example, like, have to like attend like, committees or whatever to try to make sure like
something like that.
Like that. But the basketball team shouldn't be penalized for what the crowd does, because my prediction is this is going to be at neutral sites now. All these tournaments now for NEC are forever going to be at neutral sites because we ruined it. That's what we're going to be known for, is we're going to be ruining it for everyone, and we can't even have home court advantage. It's going to be neutral sites.
Yeah. I mean, it does suck. I mean, the only thing I can say from here on out is whenever Wagner comes back to Bryant next year, it's going to be a a heck of a time. I don't know how that's going to go. There's going to be some protocols in place. I don't know what they're going to look like, but it is going to be a very interesting scene when Wagner comes back to Bryant.
They might have us play at the Dunkin' Donuts Center because of how spacious.
Yeah, a game for the ages. It's definitely going to be something that's going to be talked about in Smithfield for a long time. But Kyle, we're unfortunately down to the wire. I was planning to talk about a bunch of NFL stuff on the show today, but I figured for a show like this, Brian kind of commanded the spotlight, and I don't want to say rightly so, because I mean, the actions weren't in the right, but for the degree of how it all happened, it makes sense as to why we, need to take an hour to talk about this. We obviously talked about, the Bryant University basketball team advancing to the NCAA tournament after beating the Wagner Seahawks. We also talked about the insane not bench clearing, but fans fighting in the stands, everything going on there. Absolutely absurd. We talked about Peter Kiss and his craziness, just continuing to torch all of college basketball. People are basically saying that Peter Kiss has a chance to, really turn into like the next Grayson Allen in this tournament. And, if Peter Kiss gets Bryant on the map, man, that's all I can ask for. I mean, listen, Bryant's already on the map, but let's get it on the map for being kind of a kick-ass basketball program. That's all I can ask for.
Peter Kish should be sending me like a gift basket or something. I was making that man's highlight reels with all my camera work out there.
Honest to God. But man, again, it's been a crazy show here at the Koffler Center. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate you having on. I know I've been bringing you on here and there, so I'm glad to have you back on. But, before we do go, if you're not following Down to the Wire at this point, what are you guys doing? We're available everywhere you guys can find podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can also watch the video stream of this show on YouTube. And for any updates regarding the show, you can follow our Instagram at down.tothewire on Instagram. Again, at down.tothewire on Instagram. This show is currently being broadcasted live on WJMF 88.7 HD2 Smithfield, Providence, or you have been listening over at WJMFradio.com. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We hope you have a great day. And from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Kyle Finn.
And have a great one, you guys. Take care.
Before you go, make sure you guys tune into the selection show on Sunday to see Brian. Yes. It's on CBS.
Absolutely.
It's going to be after the last basketball game, I think, against the Big Ten matchup. But it's going to be, I think, at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whenever it might be. Tune in. You're going to see Brian on CBS. And I know the CBS crew is going to be here filming them.
Yo, thank you for bringing that up. Again, have a great night, you guys. Take care and peace out.